New York City, the 19th of April, 1989. The city is alive with energy, but a dark shadow is about to fall over its history. It was a warm spring evening, and Central Park was filled with hundreds of teenagers gathering to enjoy the night. While many were just hanging out, the atmosphere grew tense as reports of vandalism and disorder began to surface. Police units were dispatched to the park, struggling to contain the chaos as reports of trouble spread across the city. In the midst of this turmoil, a 28-year-old investment banker named Trisha Maley was out for her nightly jog. She was alone in the dark, unaware that she was about to become the victim of a brutal and life-altering crime. The attack was swift and horrific, leaving her severely injured and unconscious in the park, where she remained in a coma. The news of the assault sent shockwaves through New York, creating an immediate and desperate demand for justice. The public was outraged, and the police were under immense pressure to identify and capture the perpetrators as quickly as possible. Within hours of the incident, officers began detaining several teenagers who had been spotted in the park that night. 5 young men were singled out: Antron McCrae, Kevin Richardson, Yusef Salam, Raymond Santana, and Corey Wise. These boys, aged between 14 and 16, were taken into custody and separated for intense questioning by the authorities. The interrogations were grueling, lasting for many hours without the presence of parents or legal counsel to guide them. Under immense psychological pressure, each boy eventually provided statements that implicated themselves and their friends in the crime. However, a critical problem emerged almost immediately. The stories they told did not align with one another. The details provided in these confessions were riddled with inconsistencies, failing to match the reality of the crime scene. Most importantly, there was a complete lack of physical evidence, such as DNA or fingerprints, linking any of them to the attack. Despite these glaring red flags, the prosecution chose to build their entire case around these coerced and contradictory confessions. The media played a massive role, quickly labeling the teenagers as violent criminals before they even stood trial. Sensational headlines filled the newspapers, feeding the public's anger and making a fair trial seem impossible. The environment was toxic, with the city demanding a scapegoat to satisfy the collective need for retribution. In 1990, the trial concluded with the conviction of all 5 teenagers on various charges related to the assault. They were sentenced to prison, effectively ending their childhoods and tearing them away from their families. For years, they sat behind bars, carrying the weight of a crime they consistently maintained they did not commit. The public largely moved on, believing that justice had been served, and the case was officially closed. But behind the scenes, the truth remained buried, waiting for a moment to finally come to light. More than a decade passed, and the lives of the 5 men were permanently altered by their time in the system. Then, in 2002, an unexpected breakthrough occurred that would shatter the foundations of the original conviction. A convicted serial offender named Matias Reyes stepped forward with a confession that stunned the legal community. Reyes admitted to attacking Trisha Maley, claiming he had acted entirely alone during that night in 1989. Investigators were skeptical at first, but they decided to re-examine the evidence with modern forensic technology. They performed DNA testing on samples recovered from the crime scene, hoping to find the truth at last. The results were definitive and undeniable. The DNA profile matched Matias Reyes, not any of the 5 teenagers. It was clear that the wrong people had been imprisoned for a crime they had absolutely no part in. The legal system was forced to confront its failure, and the convictions of the 5 men were officially vacated. They were finally exonerated, but the years they had spent in prison were gone forever, stolen by a flawed process. The damage to their lives and their families was profound, and could never be fully repaired by a court order. This case stands as one of the most famous examples of wrongful conviction in modern American history. Legal experts have since dissected the case, pointing to false confessions as a primary driver of the injustice. Aggressive interrogation tactics used on minors were identified as a major factor in obtaining unreliable statements. Racial bias also played a significant role, influencing how the suspects were perceived by the police and the media. The intense public pressure created a climate where the truth was secondary to the need for a quick resolution. The case sparked a national conversation about the urgent need for reform in police procedures and juvenile justice. It serves as a haunting reminder that a confession is not always an indicator of actual guilt. For many, the story of the Central Park Five is a symbol of how justice can fail the vulnerable. In 2019, this tragic story reached a massive global audience through the Netflix miniseries When They See Us. Directed by Ava DuVernay, the series provided a deeply emotional and authentic look at the lives of the five men. It followed their journey from the initial arrests through the long, painful years of their imprisonment. The performances were widely praised for their raw power, bringing the human cost of the tragedy to the screen. The series focused on the resilience of the families and the immense struggle to reclaim their dignity. Released to critical acclaim, it earned an impressive 8.8 rating on IMDb, cementing its place as a landmark drama. It introduced millions of viewers to the realities of wrongful conviction and the systemic issues that persist today. The story continues to shape important conversations about equality, fairness, and the integrity of the justice system. Ultimately, the case is a profound lesson on the fragility of justice and the importance of due process. It warns against the dangers of rushing to judgment and allowing public opinion to override the facts. We must remain vigilant, ensuring that the mistakes of the past are not repeated in the future. The journey of the Central Park Five is a testament to the strength required to survive such an ordeal. Their story reminds us that justice, once lost, is incredibly difficult to reclaim, but the truth must always be sought. Thank you for watching this deep dive into one of the most significant cases in American legal history. Please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below, letting us know which story we should cover next.